It began with a whisper dressed up as truth. A story surfaced at lightning speed, framed to damage the future queen's image at the exact moment the palace could least afford another fracture. But before the spin could settle into fact, one duchess made a move no one expected, stepping out of silence and into open defiance, triggering a confrontation that threatened to expose how far royal insiders would go to protect power. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. In this fictional royal drama, the leak did not explode because it was loud. It exploded because it was precise. The wording was sharp, the timing was merciless, and the accusations struck exactly where reputations inside a monarchy are most vulnerable, not at public duty alone, but at character. Within hours, the story had begun doing what the most dangerous palace narratives always do. It moved faster than denial, faster than clarification, faster than truth itself. And at the center of it stood the future queen, blindsided by the cruelty of the attack, yet refusing to collapse beneath it. That mattered, because the people watching closely inside the institution understood something the public often misses when a royal figure does not immediately break under pressure. The people who wanted the damage done tend to grow even more desperate. What made the situation more poisonous was the growing belief that this was never random gossip. It felt placed, guided, released with the cold confidence of people who understood exactly how palace rumor becomes public poison. The Duchess figure recognized that danger almost at once. Her alarm was not theatrical, and that made it more powerful. She had lived long enough within that world to know the difference between ordinary press turbulence and a coordinated attempt to weaken someone from within. That was why her reactions sent such unease through private offices and guarded corridors. She was not responding like someone shocked by a headline. She was responding like someone who understood the machinery behind it. And that was the point where this stopped looking like scandal and started feeling like an internal strike. The future queen had not simply been embarrassed. She had been targeted at a moment of maximum sensitivity, when the monarchy was already under strain and public confidence was fragile. That choice of timing turned suspicion into something darker. It suggested calculation. It suggested motive. It suggested that somewhere inside the royal structure, there were people willing to wound one household to protect another. Staff members who knew how these things worked suddenly became careful with their words. Some said less than they knew. Others said nothing at all. But silence, in a palace, is rarely proof of innocence. More often, it is proof that too many people understand the danger of being the first to speak. The Duchess figure's decision to intervene gave the crisis its most explosive twist. Until that moment, the leak might still have been managed, dismissed, or quietly buried beneath the usual choreography of royal restraint. But her refusal to stay silent changed the emotional temperature completely. It raised an uncomfortable question that no one inside the institution wanted asked out loud. Why had she chosen this moment, this story, this risk? Loyalty was part of the answer, but not the whole of it. Something deeper had clearly been stirred, perhaps conscience, perhaps old frustration, perhaps the private exhaustion of watching damage done in the name of preserving order. Whatever the reason, her move signaled that the line had finally been crossed, and once someone so close to the machine steps forward in defiance, the machine itself begins to shake. The future queen, meanwhile, became something more than the subject of a false story. She became the center of a test. Could she withstand the attack without surrendering her composure? Could the institution protect her without revealing its fractures? Could those surrounding her still pretend this was a misunderstanding instead of a warning shot? The answers were not yet clear, but one truth was already impossible to ignore. The real shock was not the lie itself, it was the fact that someone so close to the machine was suddenly willing to challenge it from within. For years, she had mastered the royal art of restraint, measured words, careful loyalty, and the discipline to survive without becoming the story. But this time, something changed. The attack on Catherine did not feel like routine palace cruelty. It felt personal, calculated and dangerous. And when a woman known for caution decides silence is no longer an option, it usually means the truth behind the walls is darker than anyone imagined. In this fictional royal drama, the Duchess figure had built her reputation not through spectacle, but through control. She understood the value of saying less, revealing less, and enduring more. In a family where misplaced emotion could become tomorrow's scandal, restraint had been her shield for years. She had watched tensions rise and fall, seen private discomfort hidden beneath formal smiles, and learned when silence preserved peace better than honesty ever could. That was why her reaction now carried such force. People did not fear her because she was loud. They feared her because if someone like her had decided the line had been crossed, then the situation was almost certainly worse than the public had been allowed to see. What pushed her forward was not only outrage, it was recognition. The leak aimed at Catherine felt too deliberate, too surgically timed to be dismissed as the ordinary ugliness that sometimes circles royal life. It did not have the chaos of rumour. It had the discipline of intent. That distinction mattered to her. She had lived close enough to the system to recognise when a story was being nudged, sharpened, and released for effect. And once she sensed that the attack was not careless, but coordinated, silence stopped feeling noble. It started feeling like surrender. That was the emotional tipping point when diplomacy no longer looked like wisdom, but like complicity. Her defense of Catherine was shaped by more than one feeling at once. There was loyalty, of course, but not the shallow kind built for appearances. This was loyalty formed over years of watching pressures mount, expectations harden, and private burdens go publicly unacknowledged. There was conscience too, the deeper and riskier force that begins to speak when a person can no longer excuse what they are witnessing. And beneath both was memory, long memory, the kind that does not forget old slights, quiet exclusions, carefully managed humiliations, and tense moments that were never allowed to become open conflict. She had ignored much before. She had chosen calm when others wanted confrontation. She had swallowed unease for the sake of the institution. But those earlier choices had not erased anything. They had only delayed the moment when all that restraint would finally run out. That was what made her decision so dangerous. She knew exactly what speaking out could cost. She understood how quickly palace systems punish deviation, especially when it comes from someone expected to remain composed and useful. One act of open defense could redraw alliances, invite retaliation, and expose her to accusations of disloyalty from the very machine she had spent years helping stabilize. Yet that same risk is what made the act feel brave. She was not stepping forward because it was safe. She was stepping forward because the emotional price of staying silent had finally become greater than the institutional price of speaking. In that single choice, she became both protector and disruptor, loyalist and threat. A woman trying to defend what was right, while knowing full well she might also be helping unleash something the palace could no longer control. And once she chose to defend Catherine, the palace could no longer pretend this was just another passing headline. In this fictional royal drama, the story itself was explosive, but inside the palace the real question was never what it claimed. The real question was why it appeared now, who gained from its timing, and why its language felt so expertly sharpened. That was what made it dangerous. It did not read like random gossip or careless cruelty. It read like strategy. In royal warfare, the most effective attacks are rarely loud at first. They arrive dressed as concern, shaped as rumour, and released with just enough polish to make denial feel slow and truth feel defensive. The aim was not simple embarrassment. It was reputational damage, subtle, lasting, corrosive. Catherine was not meant to be destroyed in one blow. She was meant to be cornered gradually, isolated emotionally, and weakened publicly before anyone could prove a hand had guided the strike. Behind closed doors, Rival households and competing agendas seemed to hover over every whispered interpretation. And the deeper people looked, the clearer it became that palace narratives were not born by accident. They were built, nudged and weaponized by those who understood that in a monarchy, soft power can wound more deeply than open war. That was why the Duchess figure's response changed everything. Royal survival usually depends on ambiguity, on speaking carefully enough to preserve peace while allowing doubt to do its work in silence. But this time, she crossed that invisible line. Her defense of Catherine was unusually direct, and because it was so out of character, it carried even more force. It was not simply support, it was a refusal to let one woman be diminished so another household could remain comfortable and untouched. Those inside the palace were stunned she went that far. Because her words did more than protect Catherine, they legitimized suspicions many had privately buried. In one move, she broke neutrality, exposed the emotional charge beneath the leak, and turned a private act of reputational sabotage into the beginning of factional division. And from that moment on, everyone understood the same chilling truth. In royal families, public defense is rarely seen as compassion alone, it is read as allegiance. And allegiance always has consequences. In this fictional royal drama, the moment suspicion drifted toward Camilla's household, the atmosphere inside the palace changed with frightening speed. Until then, the scandal could still be explained away as rumor, mischief, or media distortion. But once a senior royal circle entered the frame, the stakes became far darker. This was no longer about gossip on the edges of royal life. It was about the terrifying possibility of internal sabotage, of influence being protected through quiet destruction. No one needed open accusations for fear to spread. Staff began guarding themselves, choosing words more carefully, measuring loyalties, wondering whether there was real proof or only a pattern too familiar to ignore. And in a palace built on discretion, that kind of suspicion is lethal. Because trust does not collapse all at once. It decays in silence. At the center of that storm stood Catherine, not merely as the target of the false story, but as the emotional core of the entire crisis. What made her dangerous to some was precisely what made her valuable to others. She represented steadiness, discipline, and the future shape of the crown. The attempt to stain her image was meant to weaken that symbol, perhaps even isolate her long enough for doubt to do its work. Yet pressure has a cruel way of revealing character, and instead of breaking her, the attack began to sharpen the contrast between vulnerability and strength. She did not need to lash out to command sympathy. Her restraint did that for her. The more the palace trembled around her, the more she seemed to embody the very stability others feared she possessed. And that was the irony none of her critics could control. The harder they pushed, the more they risked turning her from a target into a rallying point. But even Catherine's composure could not calm what came next. Because the palace was no longer debating a rumor, it was choosing who mattered most. In this fictional royal drama, once loyalties became visible, neutrality inside the palace died almost overnight. Advisors who had spent years hiding behind ceremony and careful wording were suddenly forced to choose what mattered more, protecting the image of unity or defending the people they believed were being sacrificed to preserve it. That was the moment the palace stopped behaving like a family and started acting like a battlefield of rival futures. One camp gathered around Catherine, seeing in her steadiness the crown's next era. Another closed ranks around the rival household, determined to protect relevance, influence, and the old balance of power before it slipped away for good. Fear did the rest. It sharpened silence, rewarded betrayal, and turned every private conversation into a calculation of survival. As the crisis deepened, leaks no longer looked accidental. They multiplied because each side understood that whoever controlled the story might control the future. Sophie's defense changed everything because it was not merely emotional support, it was a turning point that exposed how fragile the monarchy had become from within. Her choice gave one side courage and forced the other into defense. From then on, the scandal was no longer about one false story. It became a brutal struggle over who would be protected, who would be sacrificed, and who would define the next chapter of the crown. Catherine stood at the center of that struggle as both a woman under attack and a symbol of the monarchy's future, while the rival household fought just as fiercely to preserve its standing before the tide fully turned. And that is what made the fallout so dangerous. Even if one side gained ground, no one truly escaped unscarred. Public trust weakened, private bonds fractured, the institution survived, but its peace did not. By the end, the leaked story looked like what it had always been. Not the real fire, but only the spark. The real danger was the war for influence burning underneath it, the war the palace had tried desperately to hide. Because in royal history, the moments that begin with one whispered lie often end by revealing the truth no one inside the palace can contain. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.